acronym for Generational Academic Perspective, and I've defined this group of terms as points of view of groups of people who experience education during differing periods of time. Now, in this very room, there are several generations of people who all experience education or been members of the education community in one capacity or another. There are, I think, some teachers in the room. Administrative staff members might be here today. If they're not here yet, they're supposed to be here. They were invited. There's some current students, some parents of students, some counselors, school counselors, some therapists in the room. Wherever you are, wherever we are in the space of education, there are some consistencies. Though there might be some differences in those time periods.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. I am so glad that you took the time to spend some your morning with Positive Youth Enrichment. Today we have something a little bit different that we're going to do today. We hope you enjoy it. It's been my passion. I lost my voice though. It's been my passion all my life, dealing with my father and my brothers, and people always dealing with community service. It's what makes me happy. I have a lot of my family here that's joined in, and today we have something really nice that we're going to do.
We're going to be accomplishing some major milestones today, and you guys all get to be a part of some very firsts that are taking place. Number one, Brunch Final is the very first event for 2023 for Positive Youth Enrichment. Number two, the Bridge Gap project is new to PYE, and this is the very first time that it is being introduced. And number three, this is the very first time that Positive Youth Enrichment as an organization is introducing itself to the community at this level. So I truly hope that you guys understand the level of gratitude that we have for you showing up. I was at this table here, we were talking about what it takes to get people in, and some of y'all that's here was nudged and poked and pulled and dragged. I actually went downstairs and dragged a couple of y'all in here myself this morning. So however you got here, we are grateful, and thank you again for being here. Now I am going to start with some brief history about PYE, which was established in 2011. And it's the product of a service mentality that was instilled by my grandfather, Charles D. Wood Parker. He's inspired several generations of the Parker family. And we're here today continuing his legacy to be a reminder that the strength of a people is grounded in our willingness to be of service to our communities and to one another. Our hope today is that you're going to enjoy the next few hours that we'll be spending together, and that the experience not only inspires you, but motivates you to join our mission to bridge the gap.
This activity is just a little fun. On page 13, we want you to unscramble those words. Use all that big brain and degrees to unscramble the words. And how many minutes do we want to give them?
Just as if you get the first one unscrambled, raise your hand. Each time you get one unscrambled, raise your hand.
Anybody got number two? Who got number two? All right. What about number three? Okay, who got number four? Right. What about number five? Okay. I see some people are struggling. Okay. What about number six?
side of here, it's smart. I'm gonna have it on this side.
Raise your hand if you're completely finished, or is it finished you want to be? Finish, okay. So, I see some people still working. So I'm going to let you know secret here. Well, first of all, how did you guys feel when you were working on this? Did you feel accomplished? Did you feel challenged? What did you feel as you were observing this way? Say that here. How did you guys feel?
It's challenged when I got to 5 and 6.
You were challenged when you got 5 and 6? Did you get 5 and 6?
I did.
Okay. So you probably probably 5
And I think anyway, I should know this.
Anybody else? How about someone bring it from this side?
Well, I'm going through 4, 5, and 6.
So I mean,
Yes, the challenge is unexpected. It made you kind of feel like, wait a minute, it should be easy, right? Start out with it, and then it got unexpected.
so seeing that some folks actually got through versus you not getting through, and what did you think? Did it make you think anything? Did it make you feel anything? I know you are already challenged, you should be finished, but you're not.
I mean, so for me, naturally being adults, I don't feel like there's something wrong with me, but I can see how I understand as a student. You may feel that, but everybody else is finished with their test, and you're not.
So Mr. Sanders is sitting on something, right? For those who were challenging, they felt defeated maybe. Defeated may be a word, maybe you question, you said as an adult. So even as an adult, you had some challenges. Imagine that as a child. For you guys who got through it a little easy, what did you feel? Just, I'm real. This was easy, right? So I gotta let you in on a little secret. You guys had different words. Your 1 through 3 were the same, but their last 3 were different, and they were unsolvable. They were actually unsolvable. So the fact that they couldn't spell them, it was on purpose because that is how it is in classrooms sometimes, especially when you see other folks getting it right, and then you yourself don't know what's wrong. And maybe it is a challenge on how you learn, because we understand that there are different ways of learning. Maybe, it's a challenge on eyeglasses.
Developing your
Maybe it's a challenge on things at home that are mentally blocking you. But the point is to be in the classroom and see some folks winning and you feel like you're losing, that taps into a side that even if you felt like you're generally smart, you second guess yourself. And in some can lead its way down a mental, emotional pathway of failure or seeing yourself as a failure. And if you've been around any group of teenagers for any group of time, if you have your own kids, there's nothing worse than seeing your child feel like they can't do it. And they don't realize that there are different challenges. In this case, they were unsolvable, but sometimes it's not unsolvable. Maybe they haven't been reached yet. Or, not unreachable, no one's unreachable, but maybe they haven't been reached to the point where they can learn. So this exercise was just to tap into mentally and emotionally what it may feel like for a child to see other people winning and them, quote unquote, failing. And so that's part of the program today, to open up our minds, to open up, our hearts to the idea that learning is just not about academics. It really is tied into how we see ourselves. It's really tied into how we feel about ourselves, and it does affect your work. So I'm going to hand the floor back over to Toriana. Or is it right next?
Yes.
Okay, Toriana, and let her go ahead and take you down.
Communication. Effective communication then promotes inclusion, and inclusion is what motivates learners to be active participants in the learning process. Now, when you want to learn and you have that desire, cognition comes into play. So, cognition is the brain's ability to process through the information that it receives. I'm talking about auditory and visual processing, long and short-term memory gets triggered, logic and reason is turned on, and focus and attention. So now we have what I'm going to call the heart of education: connection, communication, and cognition. But how do we get to the heart? Anybody here familiar with EQ? Anybody heard of EQ? Nobody? Okay, one person has heard of EQ. Okay, so EQ, or emotional quotient, also referred to as EI, or emotional intelligence. Right now, you can repeat that. Nobody. So I simplified it for myself. And what it means to me is that you have the capacity to tap into your emotional self in such a way that energy transfers to your ability to tap into the emotional spaces of others. Deep, right? So now why is that important in education? Well, it's that frequency of transfer that makes it possible for educators, the leaders, and the learners to make those connections toward effective communication that lead to mutual cognitive responses, because learning is not just one way, right? Some grown folk think they just the teachers, but learning has to be a two-way street, right? So let's see what Professor of Business Administration and Organizational Behavior at Harvard School, Mr. Joshua Margolis, has to say about the correlation between emotional intelligence and leadership.
Self-awareness is about developing your capacity to sense how you are coming across, to have undistorted visibility into your own strengths and weaknesses, and to be able to gauge the emotions you are personally experiencing. If you are going to mobilize others to get things done, you cannot let your own emotions get in the way. And you also need to know which strengths to turn to, how to address your weaknesses, and how to calibrate the impact you have on others so they respond constructively to your leadership.
So now I explain to you what I believe is the heart of education and how to get to it. But there's just one final piece of this puzzle that I think is going to bring everything together for you guys today. And it's the something else that drives teachers to want to teach and learners to want to learn. When I tried to figure out what that was and the missing pieces, I came across the why. And some of you may have been asked, what is your why at some point in your lifetime, especially in your professional careers? And I think it's a very important and necessary question to ask and for us to ask ourselves. The why is ultimately the driver behind everything that we do. It's the purpose, the very reason we're committed, focused, determined about a thing. And I think that if we could just get beyond the chaos of life that interrupts the classroom, we might be able to get back to the why, the passion for teaching and learning. And that passion is the power of education. School psychologist, substitute teacher, coach, and school district consultant, Dr. Adam Science has this to say about the why.
So for those of us who work in education, we go to so many conferences and workshops about the how of education, the where, the what, the when, but I was curious about the why of education, because I know that whenever we engage a significant task, if we enter it with the right why, the what, the where, the when, the how, that usually falls into place. When we in education, when we enter into that location from the right why, we posture ourselves and poise ourselves to make the kind of life and impacting relationships that have the power to change the future.
Wow. And that's the point, changing the future. Because what's happening in education today is doesn't seem to be working. If anybody here has young children who are in school, you are speaking to some of these kids who aren't in school, it feels defeating, it feels hard, it feels like there's not a way to win. So something needs to give, something needs to change, and that's exactly what Bridge Together is all about. Bringing members of the education community together to have conversations that remind us of our why. I think that's at least a start in the right direction. And over the next year, Bridge the Gap wants to accomplish two goals. The first goal we're looking to accomplish is to bring a group of people, a team of people together who sit down and collaboratively come up with a way to change the classroom structure. just the way the kids walk into the room, the energy of that space, the feel of that space, how teachers feel at the beginning of every single year, just those energies that are coming into that space that I believe are already chaotic individually. And so if you already have chaos just alone, coming into a space with other people who have chaos is going to breed more chaos. So I would like a team of people to come together and sit down and figure out how do we get through that? Is there a way to do that? What does that feel like? What does that look like? Does it feel like when the kids walk in, I'm playing hip hop? Does it feel like when the kids walk in, they like gospel? What does it feel like when we change the energy of the space? When we develop that out and we present it to whomever it needs to be presented to so that it's piloted, so that we can actually see if this new structure that we've come up with makes a difference. So there might be one 8th grade classroom who practices this new structure while all the other classrooms are doing what they normally do. And then we get some data to see if these changes are reasonable, if they're actually making a difference. And we get to do some surveys and just get some feedback from parents, students, and teachers to see if that's making a difference. So that's the first thing, a team of people to come together and do that. The second thing is that we want to work on the development of a production piece that gives a voice to teachers, students, and parents in a way that we've not seen be done before. We want to actually have this produced and then aired on wherever platforms are available at the time once it's finalized. Now, so where do you all come in? Anybody know where y'all come in? Nobody?
Community support.
Community support? Anybody else? I tell you, in partnership with PYE, make up the brilliant mind who I believe have the ability to pull this off and to be a part of transforming the entire structure of our education system. Now, that sounds big, right? Because I'm talking about an entire system. I'm using the word entire. I'm saying y'all have brilliant minds and you pull this off. But I promise you, I believe that it's in rooms just like this that start to think and changes everything. It changes the way that we see ourselves, changes the way, that we see one another. It just changes the whole face of a thing. And I know it's so. I think I'm sort of hope I'm showing y'all right now. And but not right now. Right now I'm gonna let you guys soak up everything that was just about the presentation and listen to some music. And then come back with us.
Where students who graduate from high school who are part of our program, when they go off to college, we still continue to support them even in college. Wherever they go, whether they go to California or Florida or New York or wherever, we still keep up with them. And if they need something, we provide that support to them as well. So, getting back to the model, the next step in the model, after providing these supports, we monitor and adjust the supports throughout the year. The site coordinator will continuously monitor student and school progress and adjust those supports as they need to optimize the results. And then the fifth step is evaluating those supports. We have continuous assessment throughout the year to make sure that we are implementing the right supports for the students and individualizing those supports for their individual needs and making sure that we are getting the results that we want, the desired results. So this model it has a proven success rate. If you flip through, there's some more pages in those folders that gives you some more rundown and some numbers about the success that we've had, the financial assistance that we provide, and how we've improved graduation rates, the CCRPI, and all that good fancy stuff that we're doing to try to help the schools out. And so my point in showing you all this model was just to get you all to start thinking about ways that you and as individuals and collectively together with Positive Youth Enrichment can work together to form a coalition of community stakeholders who can come into these buildings where we work. Since we're in the Atlanta area, we're in these 4 major school districts. We all have an opportunity here to network with one another and to partner with each other to bring in these supports that are so desperately needed in our schools. So, and I think that we all know, we hear it all the time on the news, we see it on the news, we hear it everywhere, that African Americans continue to lag behind other groups of Americans when it comes to education, housing, and employment. The unemployment rate has been consistently twice that of white Americans. And that's been, the case for many decades now. And so really, that leads me to, I always want to try to ask people wherever I go, why this is. Why is this? And why, with all of the support that we're trying to provide and all of the resources that are out here, why is it that we're still lagging behind? And so I actually want you all to give me some feedback at this time, and I want someone to actually tell me what you all think about this. Why are we continually on the bottom when it comes to these areas of education, housing, and employment? Can someone give me your thoughts about that? Yes, sir.
I think I read this study where a woman was trying to, black female, was trying to sell her house, and nobody would buy it. But then when her white friend tried to do the same, it was purchased. So I know it's kind of like flipped when you have kind of those barriers that prevent, I guess, black success in that regard. But I also feel that that shouldn't be a reason why we give up, or choose inaction over action. Because if you still try your best to do the right things that will, and have habits that promote success, you can still find success regardless of what you look like and the barriers that are in place. It's about resilience more than anything.
I feel like I often, I'm a daughter, and often when I see like white kids or other kids, they'll skip me and they don't have a care in the world. But my daughter, I have to work very hard to help her not have a care in the world. And there are a lot of black people who are so worried working 1, 2, 3 jobs that our kids carry out burdens, so they don't get a chance to have the same space in their mind and in their spirit that other kids who don't have those hardships, financial hardships or environmental hardships. And so I find that it's just a matter of freeing our kids and the parents, and it's a generational thing. So the struggle, it is systemic, and that the struggle continues where we are. We have poor schools, more underfunded schools, which usually the teachers don't want to work there. I come from Baltimore City, and I find that we have a lot of white teachers come and they teach there for a little while just to say that I taught at Baltimore City, and if I can make it there, I'm tough enough to make it in, and then they leave with their experience. And so I just find that some of it is spirit bound, mental bound, and it's just, whereas our counterparts, they come in with generational wealth, they don't have the same struggles, they're not dealing with living in hotels. And so I think it's so systemic that I think it does start with education though. I think that everything that you learn in a way that makes you feel empowered, you do mentally go to the next level. So I do still feel like it starts with education.
On both of those things, and I'm going to do something that I'm going to call the village, because I think that another huge contributor to the decline in how we see ourselves and how we support each other has to do with this mentality of I'm on my own, or there's not somebody else who's giving support, and so it does not only take a village to raise kids, it takes a village for that village to even flourish itself, the adults in it. And so we're all so focused on how to survive ourselves that we are not being that village to each other. We're not supporting each other, because if you have a room full of people who are underprivileged, and then half the room is underprivileged and half the room is not, and those people come to uplift and inspire and motivate and pick up these people because they're the village, you hit somebody in a different kind of way, because they don't feel like they're alone. So all of them align with each other. So I really do think that a lot of people feel like they're alone. They need to succeed.
I guess I'm a clinical social worker. So I think from a professional point of view as well, with this systemic issues are that we are bringing a very white perspective on how to fix our communities and handle and work with and teach our young people. We are not utilizing the African-centered type of educational system or outreach, and that is a disservice to our communities because we can't bring Freud and his whitewashed racist ways to our schools and teach our kids this perspective because they're not going to understand it. So I think a lot of times is that we're utilizing a system that was not made for us, and we're trying to get our kids to fit into this system. I think that has a lot to do with why our young people are labeled so young. They're ADHD, our young men are schizophrenic, they always have behavior issues, because we're trying to get them into this white society perspective and not train them or teach them or interact with them in a way that is culturally appropriate.
And society is because like me and my wife, we have a child care center, and I do transportation as well. So every morning when I take the kids to school, I ride past the high school bus stops, and majority of the time, all of them is in their phones at the bus stop. And with our daughter, she do have a phone, but during the week, she's not allowed to be on social media. She can only get it on the weekend. And most of the kids in elementary, junior high, high school, most of their parents is young, you know, so that plays a part too. And one thing about our family is this: we believe in Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. We teach our kids how to pray, and they need to put most families need to put God in their family more than they usually do, you know, because that plays a big part too. So that social media, it pretty much side, and I know there's nothing that we can do about stopping it. There's nothing that we can do about it coming, but it's a problem because, you know, no disrespect as far as, you know, women getting their body done and stuff like that, but social media has played a part of that because it's young women who's getting that done and they ain't even have a child. You know, so but that goes to do with social media as well. So it's, you know, like I say, you know, we just have to stand on prayer and, you know, hope for the best. And just keep praying, man, there's some change.
You know, delegate their children's education at home versus the maybe seeking early education foundations for their children. Excuse me. So it starts there because so often these days, my husband, I was just talking the other day, find out what's going on here recently between maybe 2017 and now. We have children that, you know, they'll possibly need some sort of maybe inclusion, special care or therapy, what have you. And it is so common now that it is frightening. And it's mostly our African American children. No disrespect. But we notice it, and then we notice that a lot of our parents now, they're fairly young. And so the resources and opportunities that we try to provide to them, they're kind of reluctant against it. Like, what is that and why? Why do I have to do that? Why does my child need this? Well, they need it because, like we just
And so what I've heard each one of you say is that there are so many barriers. All of these things are barriers. Social media, young parents, systemic issues, education not being geared towards our children. These are all barriers to our children's education, right? And so a lot of times seeing these things inside the school building, all of that transfers over into student behavior. You go into the schools now, it's kind of like, I hate to say it, but it's almost like, some of the schools are kind of like a jungle. When you go in these classrooms, I mean, legit, the kids are like, they jumping around, they running around, they legit jumping off the desk. For real. I've seen it, like legit, jumping off desks. While the teacher's up there doing the best she can, she's here, there, and everywhere, right? Ain't no learning going on in the classroom. And the kids, some of the kids will be like, can I go sit outside the room so I can do my work because I can't concentrate? And that's sad. When a child says that, they ask me to be walking by somebody who's coming to help, and they feel like, hey, can I come with you? Kids that are not even on my caseload ask me, Mr. Sams, can I come with you? Because I can't concentrate in the class with all these kids because all they're doing is playing and talking. I mean, it hurts your heart. These are kids. So what are we doing as adults? What's happening? I mean, it's chaos, right? So that means we got to do something to fix it. And I know that it's supposed to be the school's responsibility, but it seems like right now they can't do it. They're not doing it. So to me, that means we got to do it, right? Because we are the village, like you just said. It's the African proverb, right? It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to educate them too. You got to take care of them. We have to work together. That's why I'm here to make this whole fancy speech that I have prepared. It's all about us coming together as the village to make sure that we are pushing into our schools. Because the school don't belong to the superintendent, the schools don't belong to the principal, they belong to the community, and we are the community. These are our schools, we pay for them with our tax dollars, right? So they're our schools, right? So we got to take the schools back and make sure that we are holding them accountable and making them properly educate our children. Whatever that looks like, whether it means changing the curriculum. We got to get that ear. We got to form coalitions to work together to get the ear of the superintendents, to get the ear of the principals, to try to influence them in their decision making, to try to get them to listen to what we have to say and to what the parents have to say, right? So my next question was going to be, do you all feel that our students nowadays still value education? The education that we got, that we received. Do you think that social media has changed their perspective on education and what they think education is for? Do they even think they need the education that we're trying to provide for them? Do you all think that they actually see education the same way that we saw it when we were in school? What's your all's feedback on that?
No, not at all. No, really quickly, my job as the years have progressed has shifted into, because I'm a language arts teacher, teaching students that writing, knowing how to write in a manner where you can effectively get your message across matters now. Because in their world, as we've said up here already, they look on Twitter and social media. It doesn't matter how you spell. You can put whatever you want to put, and people are gonna like it and appreciate it. And so no, and I think that is important. It's shifted, and sometimes I think I'm thinking of colleagues and that sort of thing. Sometimes I think they tend to look at it from the perspective of everything is the same. This is school. This was, when I was in school, these were the expectations. And now I'm a teacher, and these are still my expectations. But those same expectations might not work anymore because the world has changed, like we've said, with the huge focus on things like social media.
I think there's a spectrum of kids and their value of education. I think, you have some of those who just don't care. But I think you do have some who do, but I think that they don't have a bigger perspective of what is practical. Like they'll say, oh yeah, I'm gonna go to college and I'm gonna be an OBGYN. But there's no clear understanding of how where they are right now is impacting their life. So I had a student tell me oh, I want to be an OBGYN, nurse, doctor, surgeon. Okay, so do you know what a nurse is? Do you know what a doctor is? Do you know what a surgeon is? Do you know the steps it takes to get there? That part is kind of like a blur. So they may say, yeah, they may have some value of education, but there's no link to what is my life going to look like 10 years from now? And how am I going to use my education to establish myself? They just say, I want a house, I want to have a family, I want to have kids, and I want to have money. Okay, so how do you get there?
I think too, oh sorry, I was gonna say, I think too, like, there's a part of our society now where you don't have to have an education or follow the old school traditional way, process to succeed in life. You can be a millionaire at 15 because of social media, and that's a big thing. Like, I ran into some kids the other day, kind of like Bernie Sanders did. I ran into some kids the other day who were doing a TikTok in the middle of the store, and I was like, what is going on? And then I realized these kids are in the middle of the grocery store. I'm trying to get groceries, and they're doing a TikTok dance for views, and I'm just like, this is frustrating.
I agree with all that. So that brings me to my next point, and as I get ready to close, because I'm getting people pointing at their clocks and we to wrap it up. I just wanted to just drive home the point that as like Carter G. Woodson, the father of Black history, right? As he once said, education means to inspire people to live more abundantly, to learn to begin with life as they find it, and to make it better, right? So together, it's our job. We must hold the schools accountable for properly educating our children so that they may learn to begin with life as they find it and be empowered to make it better. And so in closing, I just wanted to say that for all of us to thrive and for our students to thrive, as a community, we have to figure out the answers to all of these questions and work together to implement whatever supports that we can together. And I hope that once we leave this building, that this conversation doesn't stop. I hope we continue to network with one another and be able to pull something together so that we can actually implement a new system of educating our children. So thank you for your time, and I'm probably over time, so I'm going to go sit down.
We think, and I think this is another response to your last question about whether or not students really feel like the education even is relevant to them. What we think is that the classroom curriculum lacks any real-world readiness concept, any real-world readiness prep, okay? And because of the times that we're in right now, the multi-dimensional wellness concepts they've become way more important. They've always been important, but today they are much more important, and I think that's because we're moving away from them so much that it's creating this huge disconnect in how we just behave for ourselves. It's a mode of survival. Everybody's in this crazy survival mode, and I need to take care of myself. And so what I would like to ask you guys to do is to work as a group with your table. We have 8 multidimensional concepts. I'm going to call them out so that you guys know what they are. Then your spokesperson at every table is going to give me a number from 1 to 8. Whichever number you give me is the concept that you guys will work on. And what you're going to do is come up with answers to 3 questions around that concept. Does that all make sense? Just answers to 3 questions around those concepts. You guys will have pens at your table, sticky notes, notepads, so you guys can jot down that information. And then once you guys answer those 3 questions, the spokesperson will come up and just share your thoughts around the answers that you guys can use. That makes sense? Anybody have any questions? Okay.
So I'll tell you, we decided
You're going to pick a number from 1 to 8, and I'm going to tell you what it is. I have the numbers correlated to the concepts here. So the first one is, and this is not in any special order, so I'm not telling you which ones are which ones. This is not in the order. First one is spiritual wellness. Then we have intellectual wellness, environmental wellness, physical wellness, occupational wellness, social wellness, emotional wellness, intellectual wellness.
You said
I did? Okay, I'm sorry. So I said emotional. I said physical. I said financial.
So, spokesperson for Table 4. And we actually had emotional wellness. And when you talk about emotional wellness, you're talking about the emotional relation of the children's emotional stress, emotional well-being, whether it's at home and in school. And so how does emotional wellness affect the children's education? Well, depending on children's backgrounds, where they come from, their homes, their status at home, it then comes into school. And so it affects their learning and development because it's a distraction, of course, if their mental health and the things that they face at home have not been assisted or support has been provided. It then becomes suppressed, and then they come to school and they bring it in, and we have what we talked about with, with distractions, children jumping off the desks, and things of that nature, just because of the attention deficit that we missed out on with the emotional wellness. At its best, if children could be provided assistance with these things, when I get down to the bottom on number 3 on ways to come up with how we can change this, I'll disperse to you guys how we can change it. At its worst, how does it affect education? As I just mentioned, children become distracted. Their focus is more so on the problem that they're facing because they are not able to express their emotions because emotional support has not been provided, i.e. at home and at school. Where do I let this out? I let it out at school, and I let it out on the people that's most important to me at school because I don't know how to express myself. I don't know how to say that I'm hungry because I don't want to tell my parents. I don't know how to say that a relative hit me or touched me in a way because I can't say anything. And then when I get to school, my teacher is stressed out because of the other things that other children are facing. And so at its worst, these are the things that could possibly happen. And then we have a delay in the development. What can we do to change these things? Well, my table, we came up with some great ideas that maybe some school systems may have in place. But I work in DeKalb County, and my husband and I, we work with some of the DeKalb County schools, and I've never heard of this. But we talked about, we know that there are school counselors, and but they're limited to their resources. And there's 2 to 3 counselors in the school, and there's hundreds of students. So how can we support those counselors? Whereas those children can be heard and seen and get those resources and those support mechanisms that they need. So why not add social workers to? There are social workers, but they have 2 to 3 schools on their caseload, and maybe hundreds of students to see, right? So if schools could provide social workers in each particular school, that would be world changing. If we could provide mental health specialists so that it supports those social workers and counselors so that you can get down to the bottom of it. Because a lot of times it's undiagnosed or social emotional development behaviors that children just get labeled. So he's got ADHD or he's ADD or oh, he's autistic. But no, I'm homeless. I live in a hotel. My mom doesn't have a job, or we ate 2 days ago, and the only time I do eat a good meal is at school. So those mental health therapists to help children to be able to, express themselves and then identify what the root of the problem is, and then how can we assist that child. Am I good on time? 29 seconds. So that's what we came up. Did I miss anything? Okay. So yes, adding those social workers and those mental health therapists to assist those counselors and those social workers that have 2 and 3 schools in one day, that those kids only get seen, once a month? That's not enough. So that's how we can support emotional wellness.
All right, so we have physical wellness. So we came up with a lot of developments, but in its best, physical wellness will increase the ability to learn, decrease behavioral issues, and build community health. At its worst, it is the inability to focus with inability to focus in the classroom during the day because of poor food options. You know, you're gonna be getting itis after you eat, or if you are eating a honey bun for breakfast, that's not enough to sustain you. We talked about how a lot of middle school and high school kids don't eat the free lunch, they just go to the vending machine, and the vending machine options are not very healthy. So then we have, it increases behavioral issues, because if you're eating a lot of sugar or salty foods, then obviously you're not going to be able to pay attention, and that's how you get these hyper students and things like that. It also increases medical issues, because you're not teaching them how to eat well, and that increases poor physical and healthy habits for adults as well. All right, so what we think we can do about this? We think that there should be national physical education milestones that are based on the funding for the school. So just like standardized testing is something that's based on funding for schools, like teachers have to pass these things, so many students need to pass, and that increases or decreases what funding is available for the school. Offering or including physical education in that should also be something. Also, as far as based on funding, should be teaching healthy eating habits should be an option, and increase in community medical screening and health management. So there are some schools now that they do offer like medical screenings in schools, basic medical screenings, ear, eyes, things like that. Some schools have nurses, I know they have a nurse. My nieces are always at the nurse's office for crazy reasons. But some schools have nurses, which is a good option. And then offering those through the school to the community to make sure that they are getting some healthy options, right? And the normal screenings that they might need or that the parents might need. So something like that. Then teaching sleep hygiene, because we all know that a lot of kids are on the phone, like social media, stuff like that. You know, adults are the same way. I will put myself in that. We like to look at our phones all night. Well, we get a lot of students. I know I have a lot of students that I counsel, and they're on their phones until like 11 o'clock at night. You are 12 years old. You don't need to be on your phone at 12 o'clock at night. So in school, teaching healthy sleep hygiene. Sleep hygiene says, I'm going to put my phone away, I'm going to take a shower, I'm going to brush my teeth, I'm going to put my pajamas on, I'm going to say goodnight. Like that's sleep hygiene. That's so important to teach. Offering better foods at school, and potentially offering like a monthly or a weekly farmers market, so you have local people in the community who are coming to the school and giving back to the school, helping the parents have certain things that they can purchase as well. I know at Dade they have the farm out there, the garden and stuff, and they, bring those things into the school. Like that's a big plus, because you're teaching health, you're teaching environment. That's not ours, but still, you're teaching environment, and you're also teaching them how to live off the things that they can produce themselves. Let's see, what else do we have? I think that's it. Thank you.
All right, our table we have intellectual wellness. Intellectual wellness, that's a big deal these days, right? Being intellectual, we can have instructions to make that happen. Social media is a big part of what's going on today. Talk about that. All the interruptions that are time in the classroom, right? But let's go to the question. How does it, if we had intellectual wellness today, how will it affect our schools or our education? We will have a better education system. We have a better student graduation rate, right? We would have students that would actually sit in the classroom and sit down and listen to what the instructor or the teacher or professor is talking about, if that was the case. But unfortunately, we don't. What we have, we're competing against the phones. We're competing against how I look, what she got on, what he got on. So there's an intellectual barrier there, right? So when you talk about the next one, at its worst, how does it affect education? We talked about some good things over here, and I wanted to write everything down. But right now, we have teachers that are kind of handcuffed in what they do. We got students that have no accountability. If they do something, when I came through school, there was, we use this, we had corporal punishment. You got paddled, or you got paddled behind. But you were there in the room in front of everybody when that happened. It was a level of embarrassment that you knew you wasn't going to do that no more. So you sat back down and you said, okay, teacher, I'm good. I don't want you to call my parents. I don't want you to call my dad, because that is another form of corporal punishment when I got home. All right? So, and the other thing is, in this second question, what is at its worst? Most of our teachers run into the situation where our students don't even know how to balance a checkbook. They don't know how to write a letter, actually put a to and from, date it, put a salutation at the bottom, and mail it off. Does that even occur anymore? Everybody's got a text. You got my cash out. You good? That's what's going on today. So how do we effectively change that? What do? We've got to have a level of accountability in schools. I don't know how we can implement it, but we've got to have a level of accountability. Teachers can't be so handcuffed that once a child acts out that they are fired, the child has all the privilege and no accountability for something that has to change. I'm just making that succinct. How that, let's see right here. Did I miss something? Please. It's got to be, use her word, which is very good, Ms. Jones. See, natural occurrences, or consequences, I'm sorry. Natural consequences. Nowadays, we don't have that. You better not touch my child. If you do something, my child will come up there and eat you. And exactly. So we've seen that on the news repeatedly. Intellectual. I think our kids, we have kids that are very smart. You got kids that are picking up on an iPad, swiping left, tapping on it, understand it before some of their grandparents and parents did. So I don't think the intellectual piece is the issue. It's about how we implement as far as educators and teachers and parents.
Occupational wellness is basically the ability to foster positive attitudes towards jobs, classroom settings, work. It enhances your professional ability for personal and professional satisfaction and promote lifelong learning, including sense of self. Right? Our first question was for the highest. And part of what it said is introduction of other opportunities to the students where they have exposures to different skill sets, introduce them to non-traditional skills as well as traditional opportunities that will help them develop their community, as well as such as agriculture, carpentry, art and design, bonus to bonus. At its worst, we said the negative effect of influencers. There are some influencers that, growing up for me was my teacher, it was somebody in my neighborhood, it was people that you encounter, adults but not, and they don't really have that opportunity as much. It's not just the social media. They don't have the person at the neighborhood, at the street that's going to help them do something. They're not going to have the aunties, because we all grew with aunties. Not everybody has no aunties anymore that can influence them. But it also goes into the lack of influence in their household, from their parents, from their family members. I see that my cousin Johnny is surviving off of slaving on the street. That's my influence. If I do some other cousins who are going to school, get an education and development, that's what I'm talking about. It happens with teachers, and sometimes I meet teachers and they feel so defeated. So their goal is to go to work and get shit. They're not interested in developing your child. They're not interested in helping you build your community. They're not interested in listening to you. So at this point, you have a child that's destined to fail because you don't have those resources for them. So, so to help this is to introduce them to opportunities. If they like arts or they like design, don't bring everybody as an architect or something. Bring somebody who's a tattoo artist. They might like to do that. They like gardening. Bring somebody who's interested in that. They might like cooking. Bring chef owners, opportunities in there, and bring resources to them that will help develop them and they can use back in their communities, start businesses in our communities, and help generate wealth and wellness for our communities.
Guys, y'all did great. You did great. I know it's a few people, maybe one person was a little nervous about getting up. Did great. So thank you so much. The point in that activity was just to show how important all of these concepts are to preparing these students to come out into the real world. And these are areas that don't really get talked about because the curriculum is built around number grades and get these things in this little box and let's hurry up. It moves so fast that typically you only have a week to learn something. It doesn't even equate to how we are built to learn. So it's really just, can you remember this long enough to take this test and pass it and move on to the next thing? So my thought with PYE's programming is to not move so fast, to slow down just a little bit, and to teach things that are really going to prepare these people to come out and be supports to us when it's time, right? And be able to carry on into these next generations, and also to give some relief to these teachers, because maybe it would be great if the kids came into a room where they knew they were going to be engaging in a different kind of way, and it wasn't such a tug of war and a fight for them to be involved in the learning process. Everything that you guys said is what's on my mind. Everything that you guys said is what's on my mind, and I think that it's very relevant. The point is that it's all needed. Everybody talked about the benefits to having these concepts be in the classroom, and what you discussed as the drawbacks are detrimental. They are detrimental, and I think we're living in this time right now where we can see that that is the truth. So thank you guys for sharing. We are actually a little bit early, and so we're going to start the closing unless there are any questions for myself, even for Mr. Sams. Does anybody have any questions about anything you've heard today? Or
I have a question for Mr. Sams. So the children that are in the program, how do you identify them? I mean, like my granddaughter goes to high school around the corner, but I never even heard about your program before. So I'm just curious, how do you pick up?
So most of the time what happens is the caseload is developed by the principals, the assistant principals, and the counselors. They'll take the kids that they call the at-risk. They have these circle of support teams in the buildings, and they pull the kids who are probably most of the time the behavior problems, the ones who are always getting suspended. Normally that's what they give us, but then also the ones who are low as far as their academics. So they're identified by the administrators mostly. And then, but also site coordinators have the ability, while they're in the building and they see a student who may be struggling, or if someone comes up to them and says, hey, Mr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so, I need help, can you provide tutoring or whatever, they can also put those kids on caseload. So it mainly comes from the administrators, but we also have the flexibility to kind of add our and build our own caseload.
Well, for me, and I know the rest of the PYE representatives, this has been a great morning. A lot of sharing, a lot of thinking, a lot of talking, a lot of big words being thrown around. But again, we truly do appreciate you guys for showing up for us today and actively participating in this process. I want to take a moment to just do some brief announcements and acknowledgments for a few people before we close or as we close. I mentioned a little bit earlier that I'm a current student and that I have a great instructor right now, and she is here today, so I want to take a minute and just I don't know, 46, I think it's like, you know, as you get up, you notice these things that change and change and change. I think for me, 46 is a crime age. I have not cried this much in my entire life. But anyway, it took me 2.5 years to find it. And everybody who knows my journey knows that I was really stressing about the fact that I could not find a practical site and then just supervise. And generally speaking, we want things how we want them when we want them. Sometimes it's something else in the cards for you. Sometimes your story is not what you think it is, or it doesn't roll out the way that you think it should. If I had not waited 2.5 years, the experience that I had with thank you for trusting me. Thank you for helping me to build up my confidence. Thank you for letting me ask questions. Thank you for the therapy sessions that we shared in the room. Just thank you. I only have 3 weeks left with her. If I could do my whole practice and then make you switch, I think they do it on purpose. But some of my other classmates have had crazy experiences, but not just if it were for Miss Tiffany, Miss Lee and Miss Jones, again, have also been very instrumental in me having a really good experience. I wish I could take y'all with me or go do something else past moving forward, but you guys have really made my last 30 weeks really special. So thank you all for your patience, for your willingness, for your care, and for your support. So I have a gift for you. I'll make you come up and get it. Thank you so much. So I want to also thank Mr. Robert Johnson. He's been skating around, gliding around here with that camera and that what is that, recorder, making sure that he gets all the little tidbits so we can have this one record, because it's such a big deal. Thank you for your time here with us today. I also want to give a special thank you to Mr. Mark Sims. Thank you so much for volunteering. I want to thank our volunteers, also being back there. Ambassadors. And then I'm going to acknowledge several board members who are present today. When I call your name, stand or wave, just let somebody know who you are. Ms. Taria LaBou, who is our treasurer. with us today is struggling with some health issues, but he really, really truly wanted to be here. So I really try to say his name out loud. And I send the vibes that we are thinking about him and those with us to be able to here. I also want to thank Date Academy for being a sponsor. Date is actually a sponsor for us for some other upcoming events. Those events are listed in your books. So take a look at those just so that you know you guys are all on our email list, and so when things are happening, you'll get a notification, and you're always welcome to come and be a part of whatever it is we have going on. So lastly, in the back of your book, there is a survey. If you would gently tear that survey out for me and complete it, just quick, I think it's 6 questions on that survey. I hope it's pretty simple to tear out once you get it started. Yep. Tear that out. Now at the bottom of the survey is the top portion and then the bottom portion. That bottom portion, if you fold that, if it's applicable to you, you would fold that, put your name on it. And as you guys depart, I'm going to have one of the volunteers just stand at the door where you can fold those surveys up and just drop them in a little bag. You want to say? Yeah. And as you guys are working on that, Ms. Davis Carter has something she wants to share with you. Okay.
Who was that, Benjamin Franklin?
What I wanted to do is say thank you everybody for showing up. I had a great time. I hope you did too. I wanted to give a very, very, very special acknowledgement to Miss Toriana Rodriguez. She's 1 in a million. She has a brilliant mind and heart, and I am very, very proud that she's on my team. Thank you, George. Thank you. Oh, who won that?
Nobody won. Oh, I was ready to go over that. So the riddle.
Somebody won.
Somebody did win?
Somebody what?
Did anybody get bingo? Nobody text you? Somebody text you bingo in the riddle? One person. One person for the riddle?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Bring it up to me. So I'm going to repeat the riddle to you guys. I am easily managed. You must simply be firm with me. Show me exactly how you want something done. After a few lessons, I will do it automatically. I am the servant of all great people and the last of all failures as well. What am I? So who was the person who gave the answer? Okay, what was the answer? Yeah, what's your answer? That's what it is. That's what it is. Mr. Boyd, you were supposed to win that one. Now y'all said you were going to get it. You hear me? Mr. Lloyd.
I'm sorry? I didn't hear you.
Diana was your biggest supporter, but she said Mr. Lloyd is going to get this one. Go ahead. You messed up. You let her down. You say yes. Please ask the answer. It is a habit. It is a habit. So we have a gift for you. Nobody want bingo? You had to say that? Or not to say it? You had to text it? No, but like, can we use the signs at the table? Yeah, no. I said anywhere. We said, look, anywhere on the table. The names were everywhere. You got bingo? You got it? Yep. There's a number that's on the number was on here. This was posted on the middle page. So who has bingo? Who has bingo? Okay. Okay. It's one winner. It's one. Who's it coming up? Okay.